So, we're capturing audio and video. We got notes. Let's start. All right, let's bring it. All right, again, a quick recap, and then anybody else who might want to contribute to that.
Sure. Hi, I'm Mike. I had host media awards to recognize local makers and raise some money. We want to do this because people need to feel valued for the work that they create. Sometimes you create stuff and people don't see it. It's going to help with Open Signal's awareness and brand recognition, help raise some funds, allow artists to find other artists, and build that community networking. We think this is going to be positive for local media producers, local business, sponsorships that we might do, Open Signal itself, and all 5 of our equity categories. Though less popular topics might have trouble getting in, and depending on the entrance fee and things like that, low budget projects might have trouble getting in. What we'd like to do next is organize a committee made up of 1 representative from each of those quality points, and task them to come up with the theme and the purpose of the awards, rules, judges, criteria, those kind of things, sponsorship prizes, and the event details itself. But make sure that that committee is made up of at least 1 person from a community of color, low income, English as a second language, disabled community, and from a nonprofit at least. Anybody else?
Yes, make sure that's not all in 1 person.
Yes, we want 1 person from each thing, so no doubling up. Like, you can double up, obviously, but like we try to have like a 5-member committee is what I'm saying.
So I thought I would go next because we actually had some really great ideas at our table about collaborating with your table. So now we're going to do that.
Neat.
So we had host a citywide equity summit for film and TV industries that would help industry leaders begin to make equity more core to their basic operations. We thought this could also be a money-making opportunity for to really help build up communities that to filter into the industry. So the main problem that we thought was that the field is really just not ready or necessarily prepared to support the communities that we're talking about that are most marginalized, especially not visible in the media industry. And so while we may be emphasizing providing trainings here on site for folks or connecting all these great resources together, the industry itself is just not ready. And we may be sending people out into a hostile work environment for anyone that basically is not a white cis man. So we were talking about strategies for ways to get people to buy into this and make sure this is an important initiative to be able to be a part of this. How do we motivate people? And we thought that that really has to be through personal experience and people identifying how equity helps not just the people that are most affected by it, but everyone as a community as a whole. So some of the ways that we wanted to do this would be to help demonstrate what equity could look like within an organization in a replicable way. So ideas that people could take back to their organizations and do themselves. So whether that's by providing some values and metrics for people to be able to look at how they're doing hiring practices, how they are working within the industry, what standards are for their organization, and then really having people that are from the communities that are most affected be those that are designated to reach and represent these problems within the communities, speaking on behalf of them at this summit. We thought overall this is really going to help raise our visibility citywide if we can do some really strong coalition building between organizations that are supporting these practices or are ready to support the practices but don't know how. We want to shift how PDX is viewed nationally because we think we can do better. We want to create sort of a centralized organizing force, so whether it's Open Signal becoming a leader in this, but also maybe it needs to be a formal network for media organizations and other creative organizations to really decide, okay, it's time to get on board. This could potentially be a money-making initiative for many organizations because they may want to buy into it through sponsorship, for the registration for this if it was become an annual summit, potential relationship building for future programs and visibility, creating more education opportunities that are more accessible, inevitably more diverse job creation, and possibility of foundations adopting these initiatives for their own. And this is just, frankly, a corporate social responsibility. So we thought we need to establish, identify, demand, and demonstrate what this looks like. As far as the event itself, we really think that it should be fun. There has to be food. It needs to be super engaging. The community has to be feeling like this is something that I'm a part of. And through lots of points of connection, visual, creative, interactive stuff that should happen at the event. And then we thought about the idea of it combining with this award ceremony. If we were to make it equity related with a criteria that we talked about with the metrics and values of organizations that are doing this, either already or striving to do it, or filmmakers that are demonstrating this in their work, would be something that we could award and recognize people for, which is a really awesome idea. It must be human-centric and helping to focus on story, because we are storytellers here. And some of the ways that we can continue to engage would be ongoing equity training offerings for organizations to keep up on best practices. So this isn't just like a come, check off the box, I went to the equity summit and now I'm good. It would be a continued thing that we would have to keep the coalition connected. And we listed a whole bunch of organizations that we think should be supported, from everything from like local businesses to huge businesses, to our local transportation, to the airport, to everyone. Next steps, well, the next steps would be building the coalition of support, establishing who are our allies in this work, getting them on board and planning and possible sponsorships for the summit itself. We are actually applying for a grant through My Memorial Trust to be able to support doing this, and if we receive the funding, we're going to do it. So that's the good news on this. And we also thought that there should be some people that may be thinking like that they don't need to be involved. We need to get them involved. So whether it's like film schools, some of Oregon's local film industry people that maybe think they're doing the good work, but we got to get them doing more. So those are some of the next steps.
All right, so we were talking about supporting media businesses and entrepreneurs that are Black, Indigenous, people of color, and other underrepresented communities. So the problem that we're trying to solve is lack of representation and lack of participation. And kind of thinking about what's kind of possible at OpenSignal, we talked about providing space, so sliding scale space rentals for office space and co-working, business training, so talking about how to run a small business, including marketing, so figuring out how to offer microloans, and this could be through partnerships. Also providing access to city planners, so providing folks with knowledge, and keeping in mind how to do this all in a way that's accessible to all sorts of communities. So providing materials in different languages, having interpreters both for other spoken languages and ASL, and making sure our space is accessible, and then doing all of this work by finding community liaisons, so finding people who are part of this community, people who are already doing the work, and partnering with them to be a welcoming space. So let's see. So who benefits? Obviously, these underrepresented communities. OpenSignal itself would benefit from this. The Portland business environment would benefit from more participation from these communities. And the broader Portland community. Having more folks involved provides opportunities, employment, financial benefits. It also feels good. So some concrete steps we talked about. We talked about starting with partnerships that are mutually beneficial. So folks providing money in exchange for maybe promotion. We could also build on something we're already doing. So we could build on OpenSignal Labs, which is a really successful model, and use that for other applications, creating community through that program. Again, we talked about the training that we could offer, and this would be done with bringing in industry folks and doing, some 2-hour sessions. We could also use our channels to advertise this initiative. It's something we already have. It reaches a lot of folks, and it would provide a welcoming environment. And then a big thing we talked about was, how do we get folks paid? How do we get them experience? We could partner with area media businesses for paid apprenticeships. So, here we have SummerWorks interns, so building on a model like that where we identify folks who would like the training and experience and then placing them in these businesses. So throughout all of this, the support that we could look for, folks who could support this would be, of course, other area media businesses, working with nonprofits who are in town who are already working on business development. Prosper Portland would be a big resource that we should tap into. And then we also talked about looking at organizations like Oregon Tradeswomen and figuring out how we could build on their models and partner in that way.
For many new producers who don't have a lot of experience, being able to get involved with a production that is it's a regularly scheduled production where they know that they'll be partnered with someone who really knows what they're doing to produce programming. This would involve setting up, in many ways, it would be patterned after a number of programs that have been done in the past. There was one at Open Signal, but now at Metro East, Community Hotline is a program where every couple weeks there'll be an interviewer who happens to be a staff member at Metro East interviewing members of 3 different nonprofits, and they've been doing this I think for 20 years now. And it creates great collaboration and awareness in the community of Metro East, and also Metro East is serving the community in a very big way by representing all of these nonprofits and having them get their message out. And so the idea would be that there would be an advisory panel set up which would involve the different populations that Open Signal is trying to reach out to, people who are disabled, people of color, low income, etc. And these might well be people who have no interest in learning how to use a camera or be in a control room. These are people who are engaged in their communities already, and they're coming into this space to say, okay, we would like to be represented, and we know these people who would be great to be interviewed, or we know a space where you could use to tape this programming. And so it creates that synergy between the producer community and a much larger community of activists and volunteers in the area. It would also be a structure that would create documentation of technical procedures, say videos about using the control room, or documentation that would provide review of material that was gone over in a classroom situation. People learn differently, and so this is something, for example, at Metro East you can see on their website. They have I think it's 8 to 10 different videos on aspects of all the different classes they do, and there are handouts and so forth. And so that could be part of this structure. And the advantage of having a structure like this is you have a regularly scheduled program. It, in a way, would be branded as Open Signal, and so there's an awareness of how valuable this facility is to the broader community. And it provides confidence to people who would want to be interviewed that there's going to be a certain technical level of the programming. And if you combine this with streaming or housing this programming on the website, it gives them a better idea of exactly what they're getting and they're involved with if they want to engage with us.
All right. Our topic was offering Open Signal content online and on demand. So the problem that this would solve is access to content for people without cable, which is most people. And the possibilities we talked about we're kind of split into two groups, streaming and video on demand, which are two different elements of it. Streaming is much more accessible. It's a simpler procedure to just stream what's already airing on a website, setting it up via HTML5 so it could be viewed on web or mobile. With video on demand, if later moving into kind of a more complicated setup, there would be access to archived content. Obviously, people would have the choice of what to watch when. It wouldn't be limited to tuning in at a certain time. An option there also would be captioning, might be a little bit more accessible with an automated captioning. Another option there, you'd get to all the devices when you do video on demand rather than just streaming. So you would get to Apple TV and Roku's and Fire Sticks and all of that. And another possibility would be a pay gate to try to bring some money back in, but where you draw that line is a difficult consideration because for one, it's nonprofit, but for another, you don't want to edge out low income. And so we talked about the negatives and positives. The negative potentials for these is that how much is the funding dependent on cable and would it affect the contract with cable? Would it be something that would have to wait until cable finally dies? Or would it cause a conflict there? Positives are quite a few. Creators would have a wider audience, Open Signal would have a wider reach. We would be prepared and ready for cable going away. Those who can't afford it could watch it. Web creators would also not just have more reach, but receive training. So people that are already out trying to put stuff on YouTube might see this as a place they could come to also have a space to create content, but learn skills. And there would be an exchange there of us having their content and them creating more quality content. And the city of Portland would benefit. There'd be larger access to the public government shows that are going out as well. People would be more understanding of the processes that are happening here, and the hearing impaired would benefit from the aforementioned possibility of captioning. So the concrete steps to get this happening is first to get permission, to figure out why we aren't doing it already, to make sure that we have a mechanism for people to opt in if they want their content to be available for streaming or video on demand. And then there's a need for equipment. Servers would need to be set up, so there'd be a cost. Coders would need to code the website or the app for video on demand. So there might be a need to do some grant writing, to find fundraising through companies. You can also say this content is supported by the companies that we're using to host the content, or also anyone who is donating, kind of a shout out. So not really advertising, but this was made possible by. So concrete steps, as we mentioned before, streaming is more accessible and could be done first. That's something that can be quickly kind of get done and get the content out there. But then video on demand would be the logical next step. And for streaming, you'd want to list a schedule of the content, maybe make adjustments to the blocks, the content blocks. So people would know, well, if I want to watch music videos, or I want to watch comedy, or I want to watch some government access, when's the best time for them to tune in to the website if you're doing streaming. And then also help producers create higher quality content. So people are definitely going to want to watch content that's clear and easy to understand and visually appealing. So then another step would be to determine if content made from this facility would need to premiere with this facility first before they push it over to a YouTube channel and things like that. And then would we need to provide any coaching in this process for that higher quality content? Did anyone want to add to those?
One of the things that had come up last week when discussing about that was trying to do a Open Signal style, almost YouTube style channel, like on a much smaller scale, obviously, but where once you put something in the system to air, it also goes up on like a video sharing site that OpenSignal would run off a server and just watch your stuff. Eventually, it would get complicated because of all the videos going out. But to start something like that, because streaming live does require some kind of more technology setup and timing and things like that, and bandwidth and stuff like that. But doing that kind of thing with just a video library online to start and get people interested in the concept and maybe show a proof of interest online for that kind of stuff, which is something that came up last time. So
Yeah, the
Yeah.
video library as an initial step to video on demand.
Yeah.
Having the library up first on a website.
yeah, so it's just something to see if there's right, and then that way people can also share out links. So say I put my wrestling show that I'm working on up on here, I can instantly just share out a link, right? And instead of sending all that traffic to YouTube, gets all that traffic here.
Right.
Yeah.
We got collaborate and combine services with other community media centers to build efficiencies and expand our reach. Sorry, hey, how's it going? This solves the problem of accessibility and having differences in equipment and differences in maybe like how a producer might engage with an access center. Let's see. So that was the one that was about solving the problem, and then who benefits. We have down individual access stations and the communities that surround those stations. And for those of us in the room who might not know what the different stations are, we have OpenSignal, Metro East, Tualatin, we have Willamette Valley. Speak up if I'm forgetting some that are in the area. But, you know, we're kind of assuming that there are different populations that are being served per media center. There's also some crossover. And some problems that we have written down here, for example, which I've seen working up front, are producers coming from Metro East who have knowledge of how to run a camera and run a board and run a show, but maybe they have to start over at square one when they get here. So an idea we had was to standardize the process between different access stations so that the prior knowledge we have can follow to the next spot. I love like all of our concrete next steps so much. So I'm gonna jump right into those. Does everybody understand like the concept that we're working with? Kind of like this concept of sharing resources and maybe standardizing processes for people. One thing I really like, and I think a lot of people actually came to this conclusion in different parts of the conversation, was to create a shuttle system to get people to different access stations. Let's see, create a multimedia resource guide to all different stations and what they have to offer. And what one was paper, like a handbook, and one was like a video that you can access online. And then the other idea we had was to create a version, kind of like lynda.com, but our own version between stations, so how to with equipment and stuff like that. And we also realized, wow, we could just make all of that together, and we could tie in that idea of collaborating with staff and producers. Standardizing tests for resources, so you don't have to start over. Ask the Dalai Lama your walk-in question. So you could go up to someone. PC, could you explain this idea? It's like we're thinking outside of the box with a lot of these.
So Dalai Lama sits in the middle of the floor here. He's got a chair, a desk. Thank you. Dalai Lama sits in the chair at a desk. There's an open chair. People come in. They say, "What are you doing here?" And he says, "What is your question? How can you get it done? Let me direct you to where it's being done and facilitate you getting it done."
Invite other facilities over to party and brainstorm. Share logistics. What is this one? I think we snuck that one in at the end.
Oh, share logistics experience for field docs. So, do you have a, I can't think what it's called now, a fixer? Do you know who speaks the language of where you're going? Do you know what things to be sensitive to when you're going out? What are you gonna need for equipment?
So like pro tips.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, anybody want to chime in that was part of this? Yeah, go for it.
I wasn't part of that because I was the team captain over here. But one of the things I've always thought would be interesting to build on what you were saying as well is when you join OpenSignal, instead of just using the message boards, which are great, it would be kind of cool if we had like a profile website where I could put like, here's my skill set, here's what I like to do, here's how to contact me, and then you can instantly search, be like, I need a camera person. You just select the camera person, and then it brings up all the lines of people who are willing, who like to volunteer to be camera people, or to be a tech director, or to be a sound person, and it makes it really easy to contact and reach out to people. And you only put as much contact information, of course, as you want to put on there, and maybe we have a drop-down menu system of skills that says, hey, I can do this.
It's a great idea, and we already have it.
Oh, look at you!
It's
Ooh,
called
done.
Switchboard.
No, well, Switchboard is just a messaging board, right?
I think you can have
I didn't
more of
see
a
it.
profile, right? Am I wrong?
I didn't see a place to make a profile or to search profiles. I would love to be taught how to use Switchboard better then.
Yeah, let's do it.
Ask the Dalai Lama.
Ask the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
I think that's all we got on our end.
I've been using Switchboard all wrong these years. I'm sorry.
You're talking about Switchboard HQ?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I don't know if I can come up.
No, it's good. Most organizations could.
Did you have a
Yeah, I
response
just
to
wanted
this one?
to add, because I was stuck at this table, I was not able to participate, but just to add on to what CP just said, PC just said, about pro tips and dealing with documentaries. I would love to see there be, for the people that are doing documentary type stuff rather than interviews, having works in progress screenings. It's really a great opportunity to learn from experienced people, and then the person that's producing may not have realized that it would be better if it was switched around, or if some technical thing was better. So I'd love to have works in progress screenings. You know, like have a group, an evening where there's anybody that wants to bring a works in progress and be submitted ahead of time, so you make sure you don't have too many in one night.
Believe it or not, that was only 3 hours. With all these great ideas and strategic points of view and approach, I think that was some pretty amazing work that you guys all did. So, round of applause for everyone here.
Can we get a round of applause?
I just want you to keep in mind that at least 30 years ago, there were 11 access facilities in the Portland greater area. All those needs still exist. Let's get it together.
I just wanted to point out again that OpenSignal and Metro East, they both do the same thing, but for some reason they're so far apart. It's very important that with social media and media itself, we work together. And that's very important if you want to serve the Portland community and outside the community. We need all the support of everyone, not just one side and the other side. I say this from experience. I started out doing camera work here. I did camera work for 8 months. I went over to Metro East. It mattered none. I had to take classes and do everything all over again and start from scratch, and it shouldn't be that way. That's very important that we try to focus on what we're doing this for, to get it out there to people so they can get this information. Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to say that I've always been impressed with OpenSignal's community and the passion that everyone brings to their individual projects. And now that we're taking all that that passion and drive, and we're kind of putting it together as towards a bigger vision of Open Signal and really opening it to everyone and trying to reach out to those marginalized communities. And that just makes me, really happy and proud to be part of this community.
I would just like to say, I don't know, I think it was like last year, no, you can help me out where the gentleman that was coming showing the cameras. It was, I think they was the new Canons or something like that. Was it last year? Panasonics. Yeah,
okay.
and these the people that were showing, they was more professional people in their field, and they had they do cameras all around, from big actors and all that stuff. They have the top-notch cameras and everything. So I was just, and this guy been doing it for like almost like 25, 30 years. And so he had mentioned one thing that stuck with me when he was demonstrating the camera. He said he's seen a lot of little small communities like Open Signal and everything. And one thing that really stuck with me, he said Open Signal is in the top 5 as far as community outlets and everything in the nation. It's in the top 5. Sometimes it go up and down, maybe like the top 4, top 3, but he said it's really in the top 5 in the whole nation. And that's one thing that really inspired me, because I've been a long producer here, and when he told me that, he said, yeah, he said, you should be glad with what you have now. So I just want to let everybody know about that.
Thank you. We don't ever want to talk about it, but we all know this, that the elephant's in the room as to how we would be able to get the directors and the staff at all the different 4 access facilities to not feel threatened and to want to cooperate. So let's make that a priority as well.
I apologize I didn't get a chance to participate in everything, but I think one of the things I wanted to bring today was young people and the underserved communities that it sounds like the goal is to bring them into the building and bring them into the community, need to get paid for their time or they're not available. So that's really difficult to solve for, but I think it's the only way to bring new people in from diverse places. They have to get paid for their time. Even to make volunteer media, unfortunately, right? Like I've had the privilege to make volunteer media because of my privilege, and my friends who don't have privilege can't come work with me unless I can pay them, or they can get paid to get trained. And I don't know how to solve that problem.
Can I call that? It's called discretionary time and discretionary income. That's what you're identifying.
And I think that there are part-time people in Portland who would show up and become producers and work on shows if they could get paid to be trained, because they can't pay their rent and they can't eat. And also sometimes maybe it's just difficult to be in your 20s and get motivated to show up 17 times, right, for multiple hours without that stipend. Not to mention young parents need to pay for childcare if they are being invited to spend their time places. Other people have to pay for transportation to get places. So it's just this, it's very difficult to solve for X, but I really think that is key to bringing in a bigger group of people. Thank you.
So agreed.
I think we'll leave it there. I want to echo a little bit what was just said. I've been reading Tommy Orange's book, There, and one quote that he had put in there that I want to just end with is, stories are invaluable, but to pay is to appreciate. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Andrew. That was amazing.